Welcome to SB405D Project Management. My name is Felicia Frida Aiden Aqua. I'll be taking you through Unit 3, Project Scope Management. Our discussion is going to focus on Session 1, which is the Introduction to Project Scope Management. By the end of the session, you should be able to explain Project Scope Management, outline 6 importance of project scope management and some challenges of project scope management. So the scope of a project is very key, and it's very important for us to be able to clearly identify what we want to do within the project. And so when we're looking at the scope of a project, it's actually the clear identification of work that is required to be completed or done by the project. And one of the project manager's key responsibilities is to ensure that all the required work which will be performed is actually done, and then the deliverables, what the work is supposed to yield or what the work is supposed to do, is also done on time and within budget. And so project scope management is actually the process which helps us ensure that the project includes all the work which is required and also to complete the project successfully. So there was a need, let's say UCC needed a building for lectures, maybe a 20 lecture building for lectures. Now the project scope is going to look at how to get them the 20 unit lecture building, and so all the things that need to be done would have to go in there, and then at the end of the day they are supposed to give them that 20 lecture building in there. And what matters too is that your project scope should be able to be completed on time, successfully finish at the estimated time, which is also going to help us meet our cost and not us go off cost as well. So managing project scope is primarily concerned with, first and foremost, defining and then controlling what is and what is not in the project. Every project, you'd have to have a boundary. If there is no boundary, you don't know when you are going off and when you are in your yard. And so you realize that if you have poultry or something and you don't do a boundary, they can just go overboard and go and destroy people's things and you'll be in trouble. But if you have a boundary, you know that this is my house, and so this is where my issues end. If I go outside here, I'm going into someone else's boundaries. If you don't have it, you end up spending more or going outside your boundaries when you may not have even dealt with the things within your boundaries very well. And so project scope really matters a lot for every project. You should be able to define what your project is looking out for, what you are doing, and then explicitly list all those things in there as well. So you need to know what your project includes, what it excludes. All of these matters a lot when we're doing the project scope. So we may be asking ourselves, how important is project scope management? We say that this is very important because it helps us understand what we are actually doing on the project, and especially when we want to agree on how the goals are supposed to be met. And so the stakeholders, you do them more good when you have a very clear scope, which is going to be mutual or beneficial to everybody on the project team as well, because at the end of the day, team members and stakeholders would all know what is supposed to be done and how you're going to achieve all those things. It also helps set the procedures on how work is to be completed, and then most importantly, verified and approved, because we've made mention that most of the things that have to be done, the project manager would have to approve and verify it. And so when the scope is clear, everybody is aware of it, and then we are able to work, and then you can also do that controlling function or that check function in as well. So project management also avoids the challenges that the project might face, especially with bloating scope and unruly requirements list. When you do the scope beautifully, you know the things you're supposed to take care of, the things you're not supposed to take care of, and all of this reduces a lot of issues or challenges afterwards. And also, project management helps you know what is part of your project so that you're able to do it, and helps you also know what is not part of your project which you can also avoid it. If you don't have those boundaries or those things explicitly set, you may just be doing this which you're not supposed to be doing as part of your project, but before when so you need to be very careful in there as well. And said project scope and establishes control mechanisms to address factors that may result in changes during the project life cycle as well. And without defining project scope, the cost or time that a project will take cannot be estimated, because we need this to help us when we're doing our cost estimations and we're looking at our lead time and all those ones. We need this information critically in there. So some common problems associated with project scope management is ambiguity. If your project scope is not clear and well stated out, people won't be able to understand it. And you want all your stakeholders, whether it's the primary stakeholders or the secondary stakeholders, whether internal or external stakeholders, you want everybody who is involved in this project to be able to understand the project and be able to know what is supposed to be done and how it's going to be done. And so ambiguity is what can also affect, or some challenges most project scopes may also have in there. And we're saying incomplete definition. Yes, we've defined what we want to do, but we're not done. There are some parts which is hanging. Whenever you do your project scope and there are questions as to what, how, which, when, all those questions would have to be addressed. If those questions are not being addressed and there are questions which are still hanging, then we realize that it becomes even hard for us to know whether we've met it or not. And transience, sometimes you realize that some projects which it becomes even hard for you to finish. Every time there's something else that needs to be done in there. And so for you to be able to avoid that, you should have your documents that should tell us when to finish or how to finalize our project, else we will end up never finishing our project. They will be going on perpetual. Meanwhile, our projects have to have specified time frame in there. And uncollaborated scope, if you do the project scope and then you don't put in the various stakeholders, you realize that at a point people may not come in or feel like it is theirs, and those resistance and things can actually affect your project. And that is why in the first unit, one of the most important things we learned were from the start was the project stakeholders and how they are all interrelated and how we need each other on board. And we talked about communication in the project as well. All of these are critical when it comes to your project scope. And so if it's uncollaborated, you're obviously going to have issues in there as well. So when you look at the project scope management overview, we're seeing all these variables in there. It's also in your textbook, which you can check for more details on it as well. So do well to check your textbook as well for it as well. So in this session, we discussed the meaning of project scope management, some activities in the project scope implementation for us to be able to succeed. And we've looked at the importance and some of the key challenges when it comes to our project scope activities. Thank you.